Seneca, in his tender yet urgent words to Lucilius, offers a powerful lesson on how to stop wasting our most precious resource: time. He does not speak in complicated or distant terms, but in a direct and heartfelt voice that resonates across centuries. When we reflect on his first letter to Lucilius, we see that he views time as the only true possession we can ever have, and yet it slips away from our grasp if we fail to notice its swift passage. Nature entrusts us with this gift, but we rarely protect it with as much vigilance as we do our material treasures. Seneca wonders at how people show immediate outrage if someone steals from their purse or borrows something valuable without returning it, but barely respond when their time is snatched away or frittered away by idle distractions. This letter has remained deeply relevant because it tells us that while we put off living, life keeps hurrying past us. One of Seneca's central insights is that time seems to leak away in small, unremarkable moments of carelessness or in illusions that we are doing something important when in fact we accomplish little of lasting value. We neglect to notice that every day lived is a day taken from our finite supply. Seneca illuminates this with a clear metaphor. We are all dying daily, and we are mistaken if we think death only lies in our future. Each hour we leave behind us belongs to death, as if we have paid a portion of our lives to the unstoppable flow of time. The only sensible reaction in Seneca's view is to stand guard over every hour with unwavering diligence. He exhorts Lucilius, and by extension us, to remember that nobody owes us the courtesy of returning our time once it has been spent or taken. There is no possible way to reclaim the day that slipped away or was consumed by trivialities, and yet we tend to hand over hours and days without hesitation. Seneca writes in a calm, almost consoling tone, but with a sense of urgency that feels like a gentle hand on the shoulder, steering us back to what truly matters. He explains that we must become fully aware that time is fleeting, so fleeting that it demands the greatest attentiveness. This awareness, as he insists, should guide our choices. We should learn to lay hold of today's task so that we do not drift into mindless speculation about tomorrow or procrastinate on the efforts that truly matter. Seneca's words are like a lamp shining into a dimly lit room, showing all that is precious lying scattered around. He warns us not to step on these treasures or to walk past them unseeing. Instead, we should gather them up, keep them close, and treat them with honor. Time, in Seneca's perspective, is more than just hours passing on the clock. It is the very essence of our existence. If we spend a day in idle indulgence or destructive habits, we cannot simply replace that wasted time with a more virtuous day in the future. The clock of life only moves forward, offering no second chances for what has been misused, and yet people behave as though they have an endless supply, believing that tomorrow, next week, or next year will be theirs to do what they postponed today. By calling us to appreciate that each moment is a gift, Seneca pulls us into a richer and more responsible relationship with our own lives. One striking approach Seneca takes is to treat time like a financial asset. He describes how one can be a poor manager of this fortune or a careful investor. When we spend our days lost in distractions, we are akin to spendthrifts who squander wealth left and right without any record of where it all went. Later, we wonder why we feel emptiness, dissatisfaction, or regret, much like someone who realizes too late that the treasury is empty. It is easy to drift into this state because the world constantly invites us to waste time. There are endless trivialities that clamor for attention, and it takes a certain resolve to hold fast and say no when they are not aligned with our deeper purpose. Yet Seneca's wisdom suggests that a certain vigilance can prevent the slow leaks that accumulate into a grave loss over a lifetime. We often envy people with an abundance of material possessions, but rarely pause to examine how they use their hours. Seneca's words are an invitation to reverse that perspective. He wonders, does anyone who has plenty of money but uses their time frivolously truly have wealth? Are they not in fact poor in the only currency that matters, He points out that you can add coins to your purse through labor, good fortune, or inheritance, but you cannot add more time to your life. No matter how rich you are, no matter how influential, you cannot extend your natural allotment of days. This reality, once it fully sinks in, can be sobering, yet it can also motivate us to spend our time with greater dignity, intention, and gratitude. Seneca recognizes how easy it is to slip away from good intentions. He confesses that he does not always succeed in saving every minute. The difference is that he knows precisely where his wasted time goes, and he has an accounting of his habits. He knows what distracts him, what steals his attention, and how he might improve. This attitude is immensely important, for it means we do not need to be perfect from the outset. Instead, we can become mindful observers of our own behaviors. We can ask ourselves, how did I allow half the day to vanish into trivial matters? Was I too eager to be entertained, or was I frittering away the hours in laziness or aimless daydreams? Did I forget the tasks I had resolved to tackle, or was I busy, but in ways that did not contribute to my larger goals? By examining these questions honestly, we can move closer to the ideal that Seneca describes, which is a life where we use our time deliberately, turning down the volume on the voices of distraction. This letter also resonates with the universal fear of running out of time, whether it is the fear of not accomplishing enough or not living fully before the end arrives. There is a subtle anxiety that can infiltrate our hearts. Seneca's words calm that anxiety by guiding us toward consistent, purposeful action in the present moment. Instead of drowning in regrets about the past or anxieties about the future, we center ourselves in the now. We let the day we have be sufficient, holding it in our grasp so that we do not mindlessly give it away to external demands, empty chatter, or worthless impulses. When Seneca admonishes that we are dying daily, he is not simply trying to frighten us into action. Rather, he is urging us to see life as a series of unique intervals, each one irretrievable once past. This is a liberating insight because it breaks down the intimidating idea of a lifetime into manageable segments. Every hour is a chance to live more fully. Every hour is also a chance to slip into the old habits that dull our minds or drain our vitality. But if we become conscious that each hour is a little lifetime in itself, we might be less inclined to let it slide out of sight. Seneca thus offers both a warning and a hope. The warning is that squandering time will lead us into a deeper poverty than any material loss ever could. The hope is that by treating our time with reverence, we can shape a life that truly belongs to us. He also addresses the common feeling that we are pressured by others or by obligations we cannot control. This sense that life forces us to do things we do not truly value, or that it robs us of the hours we wish we could spend differently, is widespread. Seneca acknowledges this pressure. He suggests, however, that much of our time is not forcibly taken, but mindlessly handed over. We often become complicit in letting others monopolize our attention or letting random diversions fill our day. And even when certain responsibilities must be met, we still can approach them with a purposeful spirit instead of feeling resentful or inert. Seneca is teaching us that mastery over time is as much about mindset as about external schedules. It might seem that Seneca's perspective leads to a rigid existence where one must carefully tally every moment and never indulge in any leisure or frivolity. But we can see from the tone of his letter that his advice is not so harsh. He does not advise us to be misers with our time, refusing to enjoy a well-earned rest or to spend an evening laughing with friends. Rather, he wants us to become wise about what truly nourishes us and fosters our growth. Leisure, when guided by self-awareness and genuine rejuvenation, is not a waste of time. Meaningless distraction, on the other hand, is. Seneca would likely encourage us to find joy in simple pleasures and intellectual engagements that remind us of our human dignity, not in endless diversions that leave us feeling empty afterwards. The difference is subtle but important. We see him speaking from the standpoint of someone who has observed how swiftly life can change and how quickly the years pass. He does not want us to suddenly awaken one day realizing that we have done little of what we intended. It is that dreadful moment where one might say, "Where has my life gone?" The best way to prevent that is to build a daily practice of presence and purpose. By following Seneca's counsel, we watch over our hours in the same way a loving caretaker watches over something fragile and precious. We can ask ourselves at the start of each day, how will I use the hours ahead so that I'm not in debt to regret when night falls? This is the power of Seneca's message, and it speaks directly to modern people as much as it did to Lucilius. Technological changes and cultural differences do not alter the fundamental truth. We have a finite span in which to live, work, love, and reflect. The distractions may have shifted form, from the idle gossip of a Roman forum to the constant buzz of social media, from elaborate banquets to endless streaming shows, but the effect is the same. We can waste our days in trivial pursuits, never truly present, always putting off the tasks we know matter most to our well-being and sense of purpose. Seneca would urge us to be vigilant with these modern temptations, just as he wanted Lucilius to be cautious of the amusements of their time. We often look for complicated strategies or secret formulas to help us manage our time better, but Seneca's advice is strikingly straightforward. He places the responsibility directly on each of us to value our hours the way we value gold or any other precious commodity. He invites us to accept that if we hold our time in the same regard as we do our cherished belongings, we will become less prone to let it slip through our fingers. This conscious valuing is the foundation. Once we do that, we can decide how to spend our time in harmony with our highest aspirations. We can find spaces for learning, for creativity, for meaningful social connection, for reflection, and for restorative rest. And we will have the strength to limit those diversions that promise a fleeting pleasure but take more than they give. There is also a subtlety in Seneca's reflection on doing ill, doing nothing, and doing that which is not to the purpose. He sketches a sequence of ways we waste time. First, doing ill refers to actions that are plainly harmful or unethical, not only to others but also to ourselves. These are the hours spent violating our own consciences or indulging in destructive impulses. Second, doing nothing can be interpreted as being passively idle, lacking in any focus or energy. Here is time that merely dissolves, with no real activity to show for it. Third, doing that which is not to the purpose is perhaps the trickiest to spot. This is when we are busy but busy about tasks that do not serve our higher goals or deeper needs. We might run from one trivial task to another, never pausing to see if we are actually achieving something meaningful. Seneca reminds us that the largest portion of life can be lost in these three ways if we are not alert. The remedy he suggests is to hold every hour in our grasp, fully owning each moment so that we consciously direct it. This is not to say we can plan every minute of every day perfectly. Life is too fluid and unpredictable for that. But Seneca's wisdom teaches us to cultivate a mindset in which we are consistently aware of whether our actions align with our values and desires. Even something as simple as a leisurely walk can be purposeful if it refreshes our mind, stirs our creativity, or allows us to meditate on the beauty of the world. Conversely, we can be in the midst of seemingly important tasks and still be wasting time if our hearts are not in it, if we are chasing illusions rather than living in truth. Seneca also uses the example of inherited wealth to illustrate the difference between a person who is forgiven for their poor financial state because it was not their fault and a person who intentionally wastes what they have. Similarly, some people face difficult circumstances that limit their time in ways they cannot avoid. Others, however, simply allow precious days and years to slip away out of negligence. Seneca wants us to become the kind of person whose time management, so to speak, stems from deliberate choices and honest self-examination. An important aspect of this letter is its compassion. Although Seneca speaks in strong terms about the urgency of valuing time, he also admits his own shortcomings. He recognizes the ongoing effort required to protect one's time from external demands and internal temptations. This humility makes his guidance especially reassuring because it tells us that we can walk this path without needing to be faultless. What matters is our sincere effort to live more intentionally each day. Reading Seneca's words, we can almost picture him sitting in a quiet study, penning this letter while the bustle of Roman life carries on outside. He might hear the distant noise of chariots and traders or sense the murmur of politics among the powerful. Yet in his mind, there is clarity that none of those concerns can be allowed to swallow the time he dedicates to meaningful thought. By sending this letter to Lucilius, he is simultaneously reflecting on his own life, hoping to inspire his friend, and through the ages, inspiring us as well. In his letter, he gently tugs at the notion that many people look to the future for relief or fulfillment. We say things like, "After I finish this project, I will focus on what's really important," or "Next year, I will start living the life I want." But as Seneca warns, while we postpone, life speeds by. The future we anticipate has its own demands and uncertainties, and we may never feel entirely ready to begin living more fully. The only assurance we have is the present hour. When we remind ourselves of this simple but profound reality, we can shift from a perpetual waiting mode into an immediate living mode. This transformation can make our days brim with clarity and purpose. Seneca provides a timely reminder that our sense of ownership over external objects is often an illusion. We think we possess them securely, but any twist of fate can take them away. By contrast, time is entrusted to us by nature, yet it is ephemeral, always in motion. If we do not guard it carefully, others can snatch it from us, or it can simply slip away when we are not paying attention. This is why he calls mortals foolish when they guard their house and wealth meticulously, but are careless about their days and hours. The metaphor he uses about the dregs of the cask suggests that we often do not start paying attention until almost all the wine is gone, and then we are dismayed to find that only the bitter sediment remains. In other words, we do not take the preservation of time seriously until we are near the end of life, at which point it is too late to reclaim what has been spent. This stark image brings urgency to his counsel, urging us not to wait. How then do we stop wasting time in practical terms, guided by Seneca's insights? He invites us to cultivate an inner vigilance. Instead of floating aimlessly from one thing to another, we can ask ourselves how each activity, conversation, or thought contributes to our overall sense of meaning. This does not have to be a grim or overly strict inquiry. We can bring curiosity and even playfulness to it, noticing how different activities affect our mind and spirit. Some tasks might be necessary even if they are not exciting, and that is all right as long as they connect to a broader purpose, like taking care of family or maintaining the foundations of our lives. Some moments of rest or entertainment might seem unproductive, but if they truly refresh us and rekindle our enthusiasm for life, they can be a valuable use of time. The key is awareness of when and why we choose to do something. We can also follow Seneca's example of reviewing how we spent our time. At the end of the day, we might ask if we used our hours in a way that aligns with our intentions, or if we wandered off course. This reflection is not about chastising ourselves or feeling guilty. It is about shining light on areas where we might need to make adjustments so that tomorrow can be approached with renewed clarity. Over time, this process of reflection helps us become more confident about our ability to live fully. We begin to see patterns. Perhaps we discover we spend too much time passively scrolling through our devices or lingering too long in social situations that do not bring real connection. Perhaps we realize we talk about projects we want to do, but never really start them. By noticing these patterns, we can gently correct our course and become more intentional. Seneca's advice also encourages us to redefine what success looks like. Instead of measuring success by external markers, such as wealth or fame, we focus on whether we are making the best use of our limited days. A person who has modest means yet invests their time in learning, creative pursuits, caring for loved ones, and cultivating virtue could be far wealthier in Seneca's eyes than someone who has a vast estate but wastes their days in endless entertainments or shallow engagements. This perspective is liberating because it puts control of our well-being back in our own hands, rather than leaving it to chance or external validation. At the core, Seneca's exhortation is an invitation to recognize that life is short and fragile, and that, paradoxically, we make it richer and more expansive by using time wisely. When we hold this truth before us, we stop clinging to illusions that we have an unlimited supply of tomorrows. We become less susceptible to the seductive calls of procrastination or the fear that we will never get around to what matters. We also gain a deeper appreciation for the present moment, no matter how ordinary it might seem at first glance. The morning routine, the conversations with family and friends, the hours spent at work, any of these can be approached with a mindset that cherishes time. The notion of not wasting time does not mean we have to be constantly engaged in strenuous tasks. It means we do not squander our attention on that which does not bring us closer to who we want to be. Seneca's reflection on debt is particularly poignant. He marvels at how people count it as a serious matter to be financially indebted to someone, and yet they do not consider themselves in any sort of debt when they accept another's time or waste their own. But time is something that cannot be repaid. Even the most grateful of recipients cannot give back a moment that has passed. The moment is gone forever, and the best you can do is offer new moments of your own. This makes it all the more crucial to handle each other's time with care and respect. When we interact with others, we might remember not to demand more of their time than is fair, and when we commit to a meeting or a conversation, we might do so with the seriousness it deserves. Similarly, when we commit to ourselves, to our own reading, reflection, or endeavors, we honor that commitment because we understand that no one can reimburse us for the time we give up. Seneca's letter communicates a deep optimism about what is possible if we wake up to time's value. He suggests that if we become masters of our time, we will experience a sense of freedom that cannot be taken from us, even if external circumstances are harsh. The captivity most people experience is not physical imprisonment, but the imprisonment of careless living, of constantly being driven by impulses or external pressures without any sense of autonomy. To free ourselves, we do not need to escape into some secluded retreat, though sometimes a bit of solitude can help. We simply need to reclaim our hours and direct them toward ends that resonate with our authentic selves. This letter, though written to Lucilius, serves as a timeless piece of correspondence to humanity at large. We can let Seneca's words echo in our hearts, reminding us that the clock is ticking, yet we hold immense power over how we respond to that ticking. Will we heed the call to guard our hours like the precious coins they are, investing them in meaningful experiences and growth, or will we allow them to be snatched away by the countless petty demands and illusions of the world? Seneca's sincerity and urgency push us toward a decision, and his example assures us that while we may slip sometimes, acknowledging our losses is the first step toward regaining control. One of the most beautiful aspects of this letter is how it combines practicality with philosophical depth. It addresses the simple day-to-day challenge of not drifting through our schedules. At the same time, it contemplates the profound reality that each day is a little death, and each night we might reflect on whether we lived in accordance with our highest aims. This duality, of the mundane and the existential, gives Seneca's advice its enduring power. The way we organize our morning routine or structure our workday is intimately connected to the ultimate questions of life and death. To live well, we do not need to separate these realms, but rather see how they continually interact. Every act of discipline or mindfulness in daily life is an act of reverence for our mortality. Thus, to stop wasting time, according to Seneca, is not merely a strategy for productivity. It is a profound shift in how we view ourselves and the preciousness of our days. It is an awakening to the fleeting nature of life, an awareness that propels us to live with fullness and sincerity rather than postponing our deepest aspirations. In every conversation with friends, in every task at work, in every solitary moment of reflection, We can honor time by choosing to be fully present and aligned with who we wish to become. We can cultivate a sense of satisfaction that, come what may, we are not handing over our days as if they were of no account. Reading this letter is like peering into a mirror that reflects both our current use of time and the transformation we can undergo if we adjust our perspective. We see ourselves clearly, perhaps acknowledging some regret for the hours we have lost. But we also see a new path opening up, one where each day is spent more consciously, where we bring our best to the tasks before us, and where we do not deceive ourselves that the future will make up for today's negligence. Seneca's words remind us that we can begin immediately to take hold of our time, starting with this very moment, this very hour. We might be tempted to say we do not have enough time, that life is too busy to follow Seneca's advice. But Seneca himself would argue that this is the voice of evasion. Even in his day, people felt inundated with obligations. The truth is that we often do have windows of time that can be reclaimed, choices we can make that alter the fabric of our days. The question is whether we are willing to see and seize those moments, or whether we prefer to remain in comfortable patterns of distraction. For those who truly want to stop wasting time, Seneca offers a path. It does not require us to reorganize the universe, only to reorganize our priorities and cultivate the habit of self-awareness. This path, once embarked upon, creates a cascade of benefits. We might find ourselves more at peace because we are not perpetually behind or regretful about how we spent the day. We might discover a deeper sense of joy because we realize that even ordinary tasks can be imbued with significance if we approach them consciously. We might build stronger relationships because when we spend time with people, we are genuinely there, not half absorbed in other distractions. We might finally pursue those endeavors, writing, painting, studying, mentoring, or anything else we always claimed we lacked the time for. Seneca's message is that the key has always been in our hands, and we need only decide to use it. It is noteworthy how he closes his letter with a short goodbye, urging Lucilius to keep what is truly his and not to wait until there is nothing but the dregs left. This parting wish carries a sense of love and care, as though he fears that without this vital wisdom his dear friend might drift through life as so many do, only to realize too late what they have lost. We can imagine that every time Lucilius read those words, he felt a renewed determination to live in a way that accorded with Seneca's hope, and we, reading it now, can feel that same stirring of determination, that same gentle nudge to rise above our tendency to let days slip past unremarked. In essence, to stop wasting time in Seneca's sense is to engage with life wholeheartedly and with clear intention. It is to know that our choices each day shape the tapestry of our existence, and we cannot afford to treat them as meaningless. We may stumble, we may falter, but as long as we return to this awareness, we move closer to the life we wish to live. The measure of success is not that we never waste a moment, but that we increasingly treasure them. Even one day spent fully and deliberately can illuminate what is possible if we maintain this spirit, and if we connect such days in a series, we create a life that reflects our best nature rather than a life cobbled together by accident or default. If we look around in the modern world, we might see that many people yearn for precisely this kind of guidance. Productivity apps and scheduling techniques abound, but they do not necessarily address the root of the matter, which is our fundamental relationship with time. Seneca, in this short letter, addresses it directly. He says, in effect, that we should stop imagining we have indefinite years ahead, that we should avoid the illusions that keep us from living fully. We should see each day as a valuable coin, and it is our duty to spend it wisely, not handing it over to trivialities or letting it vanish unused. By embodying Seneca's perspective, we can move from a state of tension and worry about time to a state of creative engagement. We can accept that the hours are finite, and this acceptance makes them all the more precious. We can delight in small things, a meaningful conversation, a thoughtful piece of writing, a moment of insight. because we are aware that these moments truly lived add richness to our days. We can gently let go of the fear that we might be missing out on 1,000 other things because we realize that real living happens where we place our attention. In bringing all of this to life, Seneca's letter has an enduring place in the conversation about how to live well. It is a letter, written so long ago, yet it speaks to the core of our shared humanity. We are mortal, we have desires and distractions, we have regrets and hopes, we have a longing to do better. Seneca's words do not scold us. They awaken us. They remind us that to stop wasting time is not just about efficiency or achievement, but about honoring the gift of life itself. It is about holding in our hearts the knowledge that today will never come again, and letting that knowledge inspire us to bring our best to the day. We might notice then a blossoming gratitude for the time we do have. Each morning becomes an opening for new possibilities, each evening a reflection on what we have done with the hours entrusted to us. Instead of feeling anxious about our mortality, we can feel empowered by it. Life is precious because it does not last forever, and the understanding of that limit can spur us to fill our days with genuine purpose and appreciation. The gift of time is the soul of our existence, and Seneca's letter crystallizes that truth with enduring wisdom and compassion.